So what we have seen is that I went via the School of Understanding on exit. Most people organizing events are thinking about, but I think my life began when I lost that job. The answer to your question is that there is no school that's ever going to teach you. I feel like you're defined by where we can't be a third world country or start thinking like a third world country. I failed several interviews.
Job interviews?
Yes. And also pretty much almost lost friends because life's lessons cannot be taken for granted. Entrepreneurship starts by observing no capital, customers are calling. So I feel like partnerships are really the way to go. People are afraid of change all the time, but the only constant is change. So I cried. I remember, even when you're walking, I cried.
So good evening, guys. Nice, that's nice. My name is Derek, once again, and I work with StartHub as a project manager. And sometimes I speak English on behalf of StartHub, so I do a bit of communications as well. And today I'm going to be a very humble host and moderator at the same time, one-man show, yeah? So feel free every first Friday to come through. We host amazing entrepreneurs and they tell their stories, ideally to inspire other entrepreneurs, but also teach them a thing or two. So ladies and gentlemen, the reason as why we are all here, Mr. Byaruhanga. Should I say Byaru or Byaruhanga?
Feel free.
Feel free, okay. Yeah. So, Mr. Byaru, welcome to StartHub and thank you so much for accepting our invitation.
I'm happy to be here. It's my first time, actually.
First time. Yeah. This is home, trust me, this is home, yeah? And the beautiful thing is that we are so much into the tech space as well, supporting tech startups and tech entrepreneurs, so you are home, yeah? Okay. But first thing, and they told me to ask this as the first question. It is totally outside of the conversation, but
who told you this? Who was?
A very big fan and a friend. They asked me to request you humbly to join Cobbs.
Is Cobbs moving to Pirates?
No.
If they're coming to Bulgaria,
Pirates is actually planning on moving to Cobbs.
No, I don't think that's going to happen. But I had this rumor 2 days ago, and some members are in a group here, and I told them that I don't know, is Cobbs moving to Bios? If you're coming to Kings Park, I'll gladly join.
That's the only condition?
Yes, it's Pirates for life.
But anyway, to start the conversation, Mr. Byaruhanga, my name is Derek and I'm a project manager here. Where do you start from? Where does your story start from?
Is this like a tech story, life story?
Now, that is the interesting bit. You get to choose so that we see your priorities.
Interesting question. Let me try and give you an interesting answer. So, I believe in grounding, right? I feel like you're defined by your past. However, you get a chance to define your future, right? I'm a Machiga. There's a Machiga nation in the building. I was going to see them as well. So I was born in Kavale and raised in Kavale for my first 10, 11 years. And obviously, when you grow up in Kavale, you do Kavale things. And I'm not saying Kavale is particularly unique. It is the story of everyone who grew up outside of the city. You do things that happen in small towns. Everybody knows everybody. You have to get your hands dirty. You have to get your humility in check. The whole village is your parents. You walk to school without shoes. It's not like you can't afford shoes, but it's just normal. Right?
Were you part of the people that didn't have shoes?
Yes. No, I didn't have. I had shoes. I just went without them.
Oh, okay.
Because otherwise I might get stolen or grow old or something like that. Yeah. So I have a couple of people here know a bit about my first years. So I was born in 1978. I am 45 now. And I went to the only high school primary in Uganda. It's called Kigezi High School Primary. And I did my first few years there. There might be someone here might have gone there actually. Anyway, but there are serious people who went there. Rugunda, Mutebile, Besije, these are my hobbies. I had guys. Anyway, so I went there, but my grandparents were clergy, yeah. So we grew up really into church environment, but we were also really doing the things, like the digging, and all the stuff that has to happen. Even though I could, it's not because we had to, but because it's a way of life. And my mother and father kind of, preferred grounding. My father was a medical superintendent in Kawale Hospital. My mother was a teacher. I still have friends in Kawale. I'm still in touch with my classmates. We have a WhatsApp group. A lot of them are still down there, hustling the Kawale style, riding borders, those kind of things. But there are others who are here. I just had a chat with one of them who's a doctor here at the surgery. So we kind of came out balanced in a given way. But the reason I'm telling you the backstory is because I feel like the grounding that I grew up with in Kawale has defined a lot about who I am and how I carry myself around. Very many people I talk to, even in the room, can't even tell the age difference between us, because our banter and our chats and our interaction, for me, it doesn't matter if you're 80 or if you're 12 or whatever. I feel like everybody is kind of a similar person. I don't know if that summarizes the conversation.
It's an interesting one. But then what I kept asking myself is, where does the business aspect then come in?
Well, so when my mother was a teacher, she was also running a shop at a very majestic hotel called Highland Hotel.
Also in Kawale.
Also in Kawale. Yes. She had a shop there, and but she was a mother of 6 boys. So I am sure the teacher's salary and her husband, who was also running a clinic on the side and giving out free medicine, couldn't quite make ends meet. I'm sure they had to start side hustling, yeah? So she kind of paved the way, and just giving us like insights. E.g., she was building a school. It's called Nyabikoni Primary School, and a church, and she would give us like 300 shillings for making bricks, so that we can, of course, go, watch soccer in town, or chumandazis and stuff like that. So you start thinking about the value of making some money. So I kind of started hustling in that kind of aspect earlier. Then when I went to secondary school, I went to St. Mary's College to SMAC.
I knew it. Trust me, I knew it.
Not many parents went to SMAC. But anyway, when I went to SMAC, of course my parents were in Kawale, so I used to come with my grab. Mostly it was like bush, yeah? So in Kawale, it's really available in plenty. But in boarding school, it is one of the things that really keeps the entire ecosystem running, yeah? And also G-nuts. I would have like a pillow of G-nuts and a jerry can of bush. Yeah, jerry can, in terms of I would put my stuff in, I would pour it in so that guys can't tell where the bush is. But the main thing was that in Kayasi, I don't know what you guys call it in this generation.
I think it's Kau now. And yeah. There is even a startup named after it.
Is it?
Kau, yes.
Yeah, so our time it was Kayasi. During that period, it was now survival for the fittest. And at that moment, you want a meal that just fills you, which is basically bush. So I was running butter trade pretty much. If you have cornflakes, these rich kids, you bring, I give you bush. Yeah, sugar, what? So eventually, my mom had given me like 4K for pocket money. But I told her that I don't worry, just keep selling bush. So you start appreciating the value of scarce resources and how to take advantage of that kind of situation. And even as a parent now, I'm seeing how this plays out very well. I was just telling some of the guys I came with, my son this morning tells me how he's 15, how he's going to watch a fashion show during the day, which is behind my office, only to discover the guy they have thrown a gig and he's at the gate collecting money. So he's been spending so much time coming to, these Bachika Nation events, to blankets and wine and seeing the process. So today he did his first gig. So we've been chatting. I'm like, how many people have come? It's like about 200. I'm like, you have to go on before dark. He's like, but I can't go without my money. That kind, that kind of thing is cultivated, and it builds a foundation and a culture. And when you miss it, catching it is very, very difficult because it has to be part and parcel of you. You have to enjoy working and enjoy making money and trying to look for it and even failing, but it's okay. At least you've tried.
Let's build the conversation from now at Smart, trying to do barter trade. Where does the formal business kind of stuff start?
Okay, so I think I would say my first real paying job, Salo, S for VAC. I got a job at Shell Mulago. Let me get my bearings right. Okay, Mulago roundabout, that road that goes down to Kaleri roundabout. There's a Shell petrol station there.
Most of these are planned kids, probably don't know that.
If you know the only hospital in town, it's around there. Anyway, so I got a job there for S4VAC, and my job was wiping these windows. When a car parks, you come and wipe it. And my salary was 70,000.
70,000 a month?
A month, yes. Which is, I guess, is decent. Was when I think about it, because that was like 1995. So when you think about it, it must have been like, I don't know, maybe like 500,000 or something. Anyway, but I was staying in Lunguja, so it wasn't quite enough. So I had to now really put in the time and learn the pumping, of the gas. Because I was young, so I can't work night shift. So you're kind of limited on what you do. But also, you'll be surprised by the amount of politics in such small places. To navigate that place and get away from the windscreen to get a pump, you have to do quite a lot because the other guys are marking them. It's their real job. It is your VAC job. They have families, so they are really tight marking the thing, and of course thugging the boss. So eventually, like after the first month of cleaning windscreens and getting a few tips, and walking some half journeys because there's a local didn't quite make it. Lunguja, those who are familiar with it, you have to go to the old park, then go to the new park, then wait for the big buses, then drops you, then you walk again, It was easier to just go to Nanklavia and then, slope down. Anyway, so I eventually got onto the pump. And while the salon was not increased, the tips were higher because you're interacting with the customer. So customer service becomes king. And weirdly enough, I met so many people during my pumping gas that even this day, I still interact with quite regularly. So then, of course, I started thinking more in terms of, then of course, when I went to college school with bags, because me, I've been joboing, that guys are just blasting in back. So I went with the serious bags, and I keep making this joke of how I haven't eaten posho since I left Smack, which is true also. Because when I went to college, first of all, I had bags to buy, takeaway and all that kind of stuff. I saved quite a bit of money from there. And realized now, S6 VAC, when I came back to the same station, I realized that I cannot. Now I'm an S6 VACist. Fresh babies are coming with their parents in the car. They can't see me in uniform. So I need to be back office. So now I had to start working towards a back office gig where you have a desk. And computers had not quite come then. So it was a really manual thing. Now, of course, the level of education at S6, you've done some commerce, some accounts in O level, and economics in A level. It was easy to kind of navigate. So I got a back office job. And I started seeing the business from a much different angle, which is now the owner's kind of angle. And there is when I would say that I started appreciating the process of trying to own something, build something, and understanding how the whole thing works. Because I was like the accountant as well of the place. Because now I knew all the operations, cleaning windows, pumping gas, shop, the select shop. So the guys there used to call me Rwaka Koko because he was a commissioner of VRA at the time. So because I used to nick them, they would call me Rakakoko. And the other day I was walking in town and some guy just screamed, Rakakoko! I was like, oh, this is Chef Rakakoko. So that's kind of like how getting into action starts, like along my way.
Interesting. But however, why I'm asking some of these questions because this event tries to bring out the story of who the entrepreneur is before the business. So we're trying to navigate who you are as an individual, what your background is, and how does it, speak to who you are today.
Yeah.
So
one thing for sure you have to know is that when you ever meet anyone who has attempted entrepreneurship, and the first thing they tell you is how they started their farm. What was he saying? You started your farm with 3 eggs. Most of them are not being very honest. Entrepreneurship starts by observing other entrepreneurs. If you can manage to learn the lessons at their cost, it's even better. So why I was explaining the first hustles that I got into is because that was my learning process. And I'm still learning, but that was part of my learning process. So when I left that place, I realized, so I went to campus after, A6 fac. Then I realized one of the things that had been the biggest headache when I was running that accounting part was getting polythene bags, these caveras, branded caveras, for the select shop. So I partnered with a guy who had been with since primary, actually, called Eddie Rush and 2 more. He was my roommate for that first year on campus. And another guy called Kabir Charles, he's the head of, I think, finance at Stanchart now. So we partnered and we started getting polythene bags from a factory called Tick Plastics near Popol, that side. And we would go to Nkrumah Road, brand them with Shell, and supply them. So we went to Shell and said, listen, you guys are always out of stock on this thing. Can we fill in the gap for you? They said, gladly, because the headache we don't want. So we started supplying caveras for all these stations. Then we realized Total had the same problem. Then we realized other stations had the same problem. And then also other supermarkets. So when we were doing first year, we were also supplying Boveras. Now, the thing started as money for chips and chicken. But it suddenly became a full-time job because of the production cycle and the number of stations to distribute to and stuff. And there was a bank called Greenland Bank at the time. So we're keeping our money. So we pick money on Friday, the whole weekend we do this whole thing, running around. And then Monday try and go back to school. So not very successfully, and it also showed in some of the results we got.
You were at Makerere?
Yes, I was at Makerere. I was doing computer science there.
Okay.
So we started making some bucks there, and now starting to think even bigger. That's also how I end up in entertainment eventually. But in the process of this business, one Friday morning, Greenland Bank gets closed.
With your money?
We were picking money that day, because Fridays when we pick our bucks, and then we do what? Because we spend the whole week collecting money is coming in. So they closed Greenland Bank. I remember I was the one, it was me to go pick the money at the time. And I reached there at the turn of Radio 1, and the whole place is full of people. Bank Wajigadeo. Yeah, that was the first big L that I took in life, because now we are stuck. No capital. Customers are calling, want our caveras. The other side, even the suppliers who haven't paid. There was this chick called Angela Chen, some Chinese chick who was supplying us. Pissed as hell. Now, we have been overswelling because we have cash. You can't even now tell Bades, man, first bring some money. Guys are like, you guys. So I went to my bro, he was in Stanbic. Well, then it had changed from UCB to Stanbic. I went to my bro, I said, I need a soft. We had about 2.5 million in the account. That's a lot of money.
By then, yeah.
By then, yeah. I said, I need a soft. The guy said, how much? I said, I need like 2 million. The guy said, boss, be serious. I don't even have 2 million. Yeah? I'm like, seriously? Because us guys who had already passed that level. Anyway, he gave me some money to just kind of manage the situation, but he couldn't sustain the business. Eventually, of course, Heinaz took over our thing with Shell. Shell flashed us. We had issues as friends as well, because now I'm the one getting money, you are not bringing in anything. Eventually, Bank of Uganda steps in and pays the account holders 10% of what was grabbed. So they gave us 200,000, which we went to Rock Gardens and blasted and finished it. End of story. That was the end of a company. It was called Quality Supplies. Bye. We go again. So from an entrepreneurship perspective, this is when I saw the first money that was kind of structured. This is when I also lost the first money. And also pretty much almost lost friends, because you're working together and the friction. As an entrepreneur, you have to understand that business and friendship can easily become a challenge. Yeah? So there are some lessons learned there. Oh, and then of course went back to school now and focused. There's no more swelling. Yeah? Now let's study again. Of course the marks had gone to the dogs, but now it's time to recover and be organized.
Come back.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, but the question is, when you were doing this business, at the back of your mind, were you being intentional that I want to be an entrepreneur and this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, or it was just something that rose out of the situation?
No, I just wanted to make money. You know what I mean? It's not like you're thinking. I mean, obviously, with the benefit of hindsight, if I had thought about the gap that there was then and ended up maybe building a plastic factory or getting into the plastic industry, I'd probably be a nice house of plastics now, right? But that was not the intention. The intention was survival. Campus, you need some money, and then we realized that we're partners, so you can't quite spend the money, so there's a need for structure and a bit of process. So while it was out of the circumstances at the time, life's lessons cannot be taken for granted, because they basically, there are no new things. Almost everything you go through keeps coming back and coming back at just different levels. None of these big mullahs we see in town here, whatever, is experiencing different problems from you or from me. They're just different sizes of the problems. It's the same hustle.
You're at campus, you try a plastic business, it closes, you eat the money at the place where you ate it from with your friends. When do you jump into telecom?
Well, I studied computer science in campus. And when I, to be honest, it wasn't my choice. Now, in A-level, I was quite one of the better people in class. Yeah? So I didn't even imagine it was possible not to get architecture and government. When I was even feeling the things, I just written one option, you know. Then I remember someone said, you put in other things. You can't just send one choice. I said, okay, what else? Computer science, whatever. And then I didn't get the AAA I expected to get, which I still have some questions about. I need to go to your neighbor and ask them to mark again. And I did go and ask them to mark again. So I ended up with an AAC because I failed one economics paper, which again, like I said, I'm not happy with. So they gave me computer science on government. So of course I was like, my bros were elated. Oh my goodness, you got this. So I'm like, me, I knew at least maybe private. So my bros were like, boss, you're getting too used to this Kampala. Remember where we came from. You get the cover. When you finish, we'll get for you masters. I said, okay, let me just go there and just coast through it because it's not what I want to do. So my first year, I was hustling on this business. I really played around. I can't emphasize that enough. So in second year, now my car business has tanked. My brothers, I think, were happy, like, finally.
You can focus.
Yeah, you can focus because now he needs us again. So I was staying out of campus first year because I mean, I couldn't even afford rent. So now I have to go back into Lumumba Hall, which is really, and it was a different conversation. Anyway, so they sat me down and said, listen, we've seen your marks. This thing, they're going to even bounce you off campus if you're going to continue like this. And no one is going to give you any bucks. Like we told you, masters, we were joking. So, so please now, you need to focus. I think it hit home, right? So now the grounding I've been talking about from the beginning comes into play. You start thinking about, now Kawale again. I've been in SMAC, I've been in college school. I've made some command. I've seen the inside of Club Silk. I'm Kawale again. So I came and sat down and said, let me now start catching up. So I even retook the papers that I had done with low marks because that was an option. The semester system had just started with us. So guys did not, even the teachers did not know how the thing works. So there were some loopholes in it. So instead of just doing the paper, if you score low, I went back. I said, you know what? I want to redo them anyway, even though I passed them. So I went back and I was running basically for first year and second year at the same time to really improve the grades so I could get a better degree. So then I started liking the idea of tech. But remember, there were no computers. Physical computers were in very, very small numbers. In the whole of my career, in my faculty of computer science, we had one computer with Linux that had the email. So we would pay, subscribe for an email address, and you had minutes. So every day you have like 20 minutes. You come, check your email, and bounce. The next person comes, like that. There were like 5 computers in the main library. The African University, Virtual University, had been open. The Faculty of Computer Science, which was then an institute, had no computers.
Which year is this?
This is 1998, 2001. So imagine you're learning computer science without computers. Then they eventually brought us some Pentium tools, like 5 machines. Hey, the excitement. People came from tech and to see these things. Then they stole them. They stole them like after a week and left only the monitors.
Yeah.
So we learned programming, we learned networking in theory. My lecturer, Professor Bajenda, at the time, was teaching us programming in theory. So it was very hard to kind of like it anyway because you can't interact with it. Yeah? Now, obviously, when we graduated, there were not that many options. Now, the banks had already taken a step ahead. Banks had already computerized. And this was a time when we had just passed the famous Y2K compliance, where the entire world expected computers to crash, and they hadn't. So banks had now computerized. So I got a job in DFCU as a systems engineer because I was a computer science graduate. Yeah, I wasn't that into it, but the job was there, right? So now career path started along there. But to your question, in terms of when I started falling in love with tech, so I had a bit of a misfortune at the end of my banking career. I left via the school of education. What do they call it? What do they call? I went via the school of understanding on exit. So,
do you want to share why you left through that route, or?
Yeah, I know. I made a bit of an error in judgment, and I want to use a lot of English. My post today was I was going to speak some English today. So I made an error in judgment in understanding how to interpret the rules and regulations that were in the code of conduct, and therefore I broke a law. And consequently,
that was a serious crime, guys.
And consequently ended up in handcuffs. Anyway, I made a mistake that was really against the bank's regulations, and that I shouldn't have, and declared clients confidential bank information. And before I knew it, I don't know who has watched the movie Con Air. Huh? Yeah, that's how I left. I was like, those Con Air guys with like 5 solis, what, from my basement office, handcuffed and shit. Went and did a couple of days in jail, and of course lost my job. and sat on the bench. I had 3 months jobless. To me, now that's where my current story begins. The other story is the Lessons Foundation, But I think my life began when I lost a job, and the other things I lost along there. That 3 months, and it was like around Christmas time. So
it's more painful then.
Yeah, because you can't avoid family first of all.
Yeah.
And the guys are blasting you, have no backs. Even my chick flashed me at the time. the one I was dating then, and I was now a criminal and broke as well. So I believe that the beginning of my tech entrepreneurship and love for tech started in that period. And why it started in that period is, one, I was on the back foot and guys were starting to move forward because now we have started Jobo. Secondly, I failed several interviews.
Job interviews?
Yes, because I did not know what I was doing. I was just fooling around, just doing stuff for doing stuff. I was not being serious as a human. So I attended several interviews, and the interviewees were surprised that someone who has done a whole degree in computer science and has even had a job in the bank can't answer some simple things like this. And I was staying with a friend of mine. He's the head of risk, is a GM of risk at MTN now. So we're staying together in Chigowa. He was an IT guy as well. One of my close friends was also at MTN already. And the guys were like, how can you fail an interview in like a small ISP? You know what I mean? So I got a lot of realization then, which was, first of all, style up, you guy. Secondly, and my housemate used to say, you need to know your shit. And he would say the same words over and over. If you don't know your shit, you can't get a job. And the turning point interview for me was an interview at SpaceNet, which is now DataNet. I went there and there was this Russian guy who interviewed me. He's called Ishkan, a good friend of mine now. And the first question he asked me was, how much do you want? Like, it was for Salo. I was earning 700K in the bank. So I told him 700,000. The guy said, okay, let's start the interview. Of course, I failed all the first 5 questions. So he told me, now, how much do you want? I said 500,000.
So he told you that you...
So he said, okay, we continue. Now we have finished Linux. I failed everything there. We go into networks. I failed those ones also. So he asks me again.
How much do you want to?
300. So finally, we now reach like, I think 150. But I'm still failing the stuff anyway. But now I do the math. I told him, listen, the thing is I can't actually make it to Jobo at 150 because I will not be able to come. So he said, but I also can't give you a job because you don't know anything. So what do we do now? So I told him, okay, let's agree to disagree. Let me go and learn stuff. I'll come back in the future. So he said, no, I can actually give you 250. But now I realized that 300 is what I needed to survive, contribute my 100K to rent, like a 50 to shopping, then like a 50 on transit, Wagadugu, 100, easy. So anyway, so whatever. So I left the place and I went to MTN to find these guys because they used carpool. My friend was working at Anderson Young at the time, my housemate. Now I got there because I spent so much time failing exams, as I said, or whatever. The guys had left. So I got there and guys have bounced. Now I don't even have airtime. Of course, I have no bucks for transit. So I go, there was like a payphone there. I asked the guy, can you beep for me? Beep for me, the MTN guy. So Simon Kago called me back. He called back the beeping number because the MTN airtime is at large, right? Where are you? We're at Waga. Hey, okay. Kawa. I'm like, man, but I have no transit. And now MTN, where it was, there were no even borders. It was a corporate, like an office where UDB Towers is. So I walked down to golf course, Acacia, go to Waga. But it was a long walk. It's faster in the car. You think it's like a short journey. But the thing was far. By the time I reached, the guys had relocated to the deep. Now I come, thirsty, of course hungry. They interview, benching the whole day. I come, I find some guys there, which they're like, man, guys are bounced to the deep. So, can I beep with your phone? I beep with the guy again. Hey, now at the deep, you guys waited, you delayed. Now it's night. It's loud. They can't even hear. You come. I can't even explain that. Wait, I need like trampo. Let you wait there on the road. When I get there, you pay the guy. So I walk again. Now from Waka, from Kisementi to the Deep in Tinder. I go to the Deep. The guys have bust home. Because it is now another hour and a half of really walking. So I get back. I finally walk to Chigoa, get home. Find guys have, life is normal for them. Me, I'm hungry, broke, tired, dusty. I am annoyed, but with whom, I found out only recently from Gaetano, actually, that they were leaving intentionally to teach me a lesson. Me, I thought they were blasting and busting. But just over less than 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, is when Gaetano told me, by the way, we discussed this thing and said, this Byaruhanga guy is not going to style up unless we teach him a lesson. So they would actually leave so I can keep hustling to try and find them. And that break that thing of like, my bad days will sort me out. I cried that day when in my walking.
How old were you?
This is like, I think I was like 23, like I've read a job board, gone to jail. I've done serious things some of you have not done. So I cried. I remember, when you're walking and you're crying. I don't wish it on you. But I reached home, I slept. I said, you know what? To Jita's words, I need to know my shit.
Yeah.
So I started learning, reading, trying out stuff, doing BAOs. If there's like a cabling gig, tell a guy, let me come and pull your cables for you. You give me like a 50.
And by then you're still learning in theory, or you practice?
No, now it is learning because I need some money to contribute to my well-being because the guy has paid rent 3 months now. You have to even prepare your stories for your housemate when he's paying rent. Because you have to make sure you entertain him. If you don't entertain him, a guy can decide to flash you. So it's being a stay-at-home parent might be tough. Because the guy comes, hey man, how was your boy? You entertain him, you're cooking. And I'm an amazing chef. So I would really cook and do stuff so that my guy does not remember not having paid rent. So now, of course, I got tired of that. So I said, you know what? They had a friend called Chicks. They had a company called Kimnet. So he used to get a lot of networking job. So I said, you know what? If you need guys to carry computers, to pull cables, these simple things, me, I'll come, you give me. So I started learning and getting into it and really enjoying it. And it turned out I started becoming really good at it. So now I was ready to do the interview runs again, like in the 4th month. So I did an interview at a place called Ciscope on Kanjucha Street. It's still there. And we're rolling out the local government development program across the country. They needed just hands, really. Take the computer there, switch it on, install Windows, connect it to whatever, like a small hub, put it online with a dial-up, bounce, the whole country. Now, what I didn't realize was that thing was going to be a proper education. Because now you're going into random places like Chivale at that time.
That's my home district.
Really?
Yeah.
At the time, there was only a hotel like in Kakumiro.
So just say good things. Yeah.
No. There was not anything good to say about it at the time. But now I guess, there's oil and gas and stuff like that. And chimpanzees, the biggest attraction. I'm into tourism, so I find that such stuff exciting. Anyway, so I learned a lot in the process of rolling out that project, to the point that now I was even snobbish on what interviews I wanted to do because some were too easy. First went and did Ishkan's interview again, slapped it, and refused the job.
Nice.
Just because I can. Then I went to Africa Online and started, I got a networking job. And in Africa Online, now I really got into the groove of things because it was a nice company, very challenging, small team, a lot of customers, a lot of technology, satellite, wireless, cabled, all sorts of things. So I got into it. But then in the process, I realized customers had needs. So when you go to install the guy's internet, it tells you, now, where can I buy a router? The first time you tell him, hey, call computer point. Let me give you the number. The second time, like, wait a minute. I can give you one. Huh? You call computer point, you bring the markup, they pay, you pay them. They said, hey, this company is even better than Salo. So now I even want to do all the customer support and installations because I know there's opportunities that come from there. So from there, we start now like a side business to supply customers with routers. And told Africa Online, said, we are working here, but so that you can afford to pay us, we are okay with the smaller money, but if it's okay for us to supply and support customers. They said it's not our core business, knock yourself out. When I was at Africa Online, I did really well, became really good at it, started making some good money on the side. I got seconded to Accra, to Africa Online Ghana. Went and spent a year working there and doing the same thing and even making more bucks because now I was a bit enlightened. And that's the time the idea of running an internet service business starting to become a real option. So then I do that, finish Africa Online. I couldn't get any bigger apart from if I was going to become like the general manager, because by the time I left, I was already heading the technical team, got a job in MTN, lower level, more pay. But MTN was like the coolest brand, at the time. My friends were also there, got in there. Now my small company becomes bigger.
The supply business.
The supply business becomes bigger. We're now supplying Cisco routers. So I had a friend of mine called Timothy Musoke. I was working with at MTN. He was one of my partners. He's also a partner at Rock Telecom, actually, up to now. That's small businesses. Eventually, how I ended up in Rock Telecom, actually. Then another lady called Marion Quizera. She got married and forgot this struggle. So MTN, I do also really well. Rise to as high as I could, given the time. End up in MTN South Africa, doing a lot of work for MTN Group. And that's when I get approached by the Rock, R-O-K-E, Roger and Kenneth.
Maybe to attach time,
Yes.
How long did you spend at Africa Online?
I think I did about 4 years at Africa Online.
4 years.
I did about 4.5 at MTN.
Okay, those are around 8-9 years.
Yeah, about 8-9. But there you're just kind of like figuring out the lay of the land. Why the Roger and Kenneth guys approached me was because we supply routers.
How many knew that Rock is Roger and Kenneth?
I hope you know you, otherwise you get a warning letter. Yeah, so they were money lenders. These two guys were money lenders. Then they had about an opportunity to do with wholesale. There was a duopoly at the time. MTN and UTL had a duopoly. There were years of non-compete, so they couldn't give licenses to other players.
Ah, interesting.
So in 2006, they deregulated and said other players can now register. So there was a gold rush for licenses. So these money lenders, of course, had some cash. They went, got a license, but they had no idea what to do with it. So they approached me in a place called Catch the Sun, which I think a few of you might have heard about. We were watching a band, and they approached me and said, hey, we want you to sell us some routers because we want to start a wholesale voice business. So I said, hey, no problem. I'll supply you. It was 8th of October. I said, but who's going to install it? They said, you can install it if you know how to do it. I said, no problem. This is stuff I do in my sleep. But I also thought they were just on bar business, bar talk. So I said, but what do you do? We are money lenders. I said, hey, okay. So we come in, me and my guys who we supply routers together, and we come to set this thing up for them. No, they actually called me on Independence Day now. They're like, boss, you said how much money do you need? I said 7,000 pounds for this, 14,000 for that and that. Of course, now they're going to say,
now you're even charging in pounds, huh?
Well, that's the kind of guy I am, man. Anyway, so the guy said, hey, come for the money. I said, what? Now 14,000 pounds plus 721, like 24k pounds. I'm like, hey, these guys are not joking. Now we have to really set up the things. So I come with my partners. We start setting up the whole infrastructure. And it's a very complicated business. Very people can understand how wholesale voice works. So we set up the thing. We set up the connectivity to the telcos. We set up the VSAT link. But this is all experience I already had from the different places. Now our bill becomes too large for them to afford to pay. So now my partners have abandoned me in the journey because we're working every day and night. These guys are not paying. They're just promising and promising. So Christmas, it was 24th of December. I'd gone to bench my chick. She used to be in UK at the time. So, so I'd gone for Christmas holidays, spend it with her. She was still in uni. And I continued to escape from her place to go and configure this stuff remotely. The first phone call we made successfully over that wholesale network was on 20. Now, this side I have the two money lenders who don't know anything about IT. I have to keep telling them, now, pull this cable from here, put it here, whatever. And I'm testing and testing. So finally, we get one phone call through. That day we have a discussion. I said, you guys, honestly, I know you can't afford to pay this bill. It's been several months. But also, they were walking on eggshells trying to figure out how to tell me that how can you join us and leave your job there where I've been employee of the year 2 years in a row. Everyone, I was on my pictures are on the elevators of MTN. I was like a star. So I was like, yeah, funny you should mention it. I think it's the perfect move to make now. So I leave my very nice paying job with free fuel, free airtime, free everything to join my money lenders, where I'm the only techie to build a business without staff members. There was only one guy called John, he's still there up to now, who was then just kind of like a runaround guy. So basically, my ID was RT001. Because for them, your money lenders, you just have bucks. You don't care about things like IDs, corporate structures, and stuff like that. So we built that business.
So which position do you take on that?
No, I tell you what position. There are no other positions. You know what I mean? You're the only guy. So Roger was there by default. So, and he had finance background. So Roger became the CEO. I mean, I was doing everything else. So we started Rock with 3 eggs. Like I told you earlier. our chicken farm was started with 3 eggs. Yeah, so we really started. I think we don't tell that story enough. And maybe, Joe, this is something maybe you need to think about. Joe, it's our marketing. Is another Joe Byaruhanga has come to just ruin my shine at Rock. But I think we don't tell these stories enough for people to realize that we've run 18 years of a pure startup and employed at least 1,000, 2,000 people in the journey along the way, given how we started the journey. So I think that's really when the tech entrepreneurship kind of like gets into the mix.
Okay, interesting. So we know you so much for events, and I want now you to take us that side. When do you enter into House of DJs, I think?
Yeah.
And then Blankets and Wine as well. And what was the motivation? What was the push for you then to also have that side hustle?
Okay, so the first couple of years of Rock were, of course, not easy. Because now I was already used to a given standard as an MTN guy. Now we were really starting from zero. So, of course, you know what that comes with. Pay cuts. And then I got married around there. Not the wisest move, getting married when you've just left your nice job.
Is it the same UK chick?
Yes.
Interesting.
Fortunately. So I got married. Now we have like real needs. But during that running, when I was working at Africa 9 and MTN and all the side cash we were making from the routers and stuff, of course we had a lot of disposable income, yeah? So we used to really throw parties. We used to throw several parties. Now, this idiot Gaetano I was talking about earlier, who left me and to work, along that journey, around the time when I now got back on the rails, he ends up in Big Brother around that time. So when he came back from Big Brother, now him was a real star. He wasn't a star in the making. In 3 months, he had come from being nobody to being, everyone knew him. So we used to throw a lot of parties during that time because guys want to hang with him. We also want to hang with our chap. But now everybody knows him. We can't even get hold of him. So we started hang out in a place called Mini Bar. Those of you who know Zone 7, there's a house next where the Tendo's parents live, Gaetano and Tendo's parents live. So we used to hang out there every Friday to chill with our celeb. So we're throwing parties. Now, in the beginning, we'd come and do a cabo, bring a hat and say, put some money. We send for beers from Kunya there. We drink, they get over, we send. Then the thing became so big, it was the only plan in town. The parents chased us out to the farm. The farm next door is where Zone 7 is now. There were cows in that place, can you believe? So they chased us there and said, you go there and blast that side, because the farm is not even really working, it's too small, you know? So we went there and built that Zone 7. Gaetano and Tendo and family built Zone 7, but now we started throwing bigger parties. Then we realized, by the way, we can be paid for throwing these bashes. And at the time in Kenya, there had been an explosion of Ogopa DJs, yeah, who were basically running like paid for gigs. Yeah? When I was at DFCU, before I ended up where I did, I went to do my first Cisco networking license, and I ended up staying in Nairobi, spending some time with Chameleon and Baby Cool. They were also trying their hustle that side, because I was with Baby Cool in A-level in college school. So we were buddies. So I was also kind of getting curious about the industry. So when we get here, we realized, hey, by the way, we can throw bashes and get paid. So our first attempt was we did a back to school party, like a school uniform party. Told guys, you dress in uniform, 25th of January, tomorrow is Liberation Day. You don't have to work. But pay 20K. Guys paid 20. We're like, hey, wait a minute. And on Campo, I'd been working with Sechanzi at Silk, like part-time on the weekends, collecting money. You know, they can us there. Where the guy you give the money, I was one of those guys. And we also came up with the idea of the street party, but of course he had the backs and, you know. So I was curious about the industry. So myself, Tendo, and Shanice, she was a radio presenter at the time, registered this company called House of DJs. And the intention was really to be the booking agent for DJs and MCs, corporate MCs. So we do this crazy launch on 24th of July with DJ BK, DJ Aluda. There were nobodies as well at the time. DJ Cream was one of our Zone 7 DJs there. Bank Robert, we got guys who were hanging around. Said, there you come. And we basically revolutionized the gig life as you would know it. So we started doing those events, paid for events. 40K, come for House of DJs event, guys come and they would always be so packed. Then the DJs became bigger than the House of DJs. So the guys could now, and the guys, people knew them. So people could access them easier. So you can now tell them, come to House of DJs and throw for you a bash. Like if I want Aluda, I call Aluda. So we'll just be there, you know, Aluda is being advertised. But you, what's up? So
you had not signed like agreements or something.
We did, but no one cared about them. Like I mean, if you fight with your talent, you'll have a problem. We just realized the model was not sustainable. So we realized what would be more sustainable was trying to build concepts and music, which still is our tagline, really. So we needed some properties that we could scale with, and start thinking about what else we can do that does not depend on the individuals, the talent themselves. And that's how we run into a concept like Blankets and Wine. Where I ran into it in Nairobi. Actually, I met the franchise owner in a wedding and told them what we're doing. But we're already so popular that she was also looking for someone like us. And that's how we end up bringing that on board and growing it from zero for about 11 years. But in there, we did all sorts of things. And not just in Uganda, we're doing gigs in Zambia, Rwanda, Burundi, you know, all sorts of random places, Malawi. So we started doing all sorts of stuff. Now, because of the success of some of the concepts we're doing, we started also getting out of experiential work from like brands. So me and Owen register Wachiga Nation and bring it to life and see how we bring the experientials out of it. What I really liked about events, and which is what I still do, is that I an event can be seen from 5 different angles. And I like seeing those angles. The consumer sees the blast. And they rarely go beyond the blast. Even the most sophisticated consumer, the most they'll say is, the sound was lousy. You know what I mean, eh? The ones who know too much. But when you're organizing an event, you see it from different angles. You look at it from one, what's the consumer experience? What's the corporate partner's experience? Why are they giving you money? What are they looking to get? What are the opportunities of growth that you can create within there? So there are several angles. And I feel like that's kind of like where my biggest strength is. And many people didn't quite realize, or still don't realize that. Most people organizing events are thinking about, we're going to organize an event, sell tickets, and the numbers always look nice on paper. We sell 1,000 tickets, 50K each. We'll make money. They always end up with we'll make money. Of course, the tears are more than the joy in events business. So I got an opportunity of being able to utilize my corporate knowledge, because now I was running a company pretty much with my friends, using my events, my love for events and organizing things and throwing a really good party, using my social capital. For some reason, I have a lot of friends, even all of you in the building. Holla at your boy. So using my social capital, using my experience in events, using my corporate understanding to be able to always step away and look at the event from a different angle that many people don't. And that's what kind of creates sustainability in events, being able to think about what else. So most of you come to events, you always kind of realize that I'm not doing anything. I'm just sitting there, drinking, chit-chatting some people. And it's very easy to think I'm doing nothing. Until there is a need for me to step in. And a small apology for those I work with. I don't mean shout at you when I do at that time. But because I have this view, I can see where the mistakes are happening. And they can easily grow into bigger enough mistakes that can ruin the entire thing. So it helps to kind of like be able to get that. I'm blessed with that, to be able to see things from a different perspective. Some people call it creative, but I don't think so. I think it's more strategic and analytical, yeah? So like that, we've managed to, and also the travel. I've traveled everywhere, especially in Africa. And I get immersed in cultures. And one of the cultures that I got really immersed in was the South African culture. Because I used to, first of all, live there when I was doing the MTN work, then travel there a lot. And along there, I got into house music, which was a vibe that Uganda didn't have. So I started preaching the house gospel. And also, if you want to really have a good time in South Africa, you have to hang out in townships. So I used to hang out in Soweto, Mamelodi, or Kaelicha, whatever, different townships. And I got into this Chisanyama lifestyle, which is like Nyamachoma Bufundas. But the way they do their thing is that there's Kafunda, but there's a ballistic DJ kicking it and it's a party. So I introduced that Chisanyama lifestyle by starting an activation at Zone 7 every Saturday, which was really I think one of the craziest experientials that we've seen in modern time. In fact, I don't know any event ever that was sponsored by UBL and Nile Breweries at the same time.
Same event.
Same event. Because it was so crazy that they couldn't avoid it. And we ran it for so long, about 3-4 years, to the point that it bred into a venue. So now we have a restaurant and bar called Chisanyama that came as a result of the success of that activation. So those kind of things. But I guess also my love for the thrill, just being able to see things, how they beautifully shape after so much of putting pieces together. I think it's also kept me in the entertainment world.
When you talk about tech and then you talk about events, it feels like two different people. So I'm going to ask you a quick question. Tech or events?
Surprisingly, and I hope I don't disappoint you guys, I think neither. As I grow older, I realize I get different sentiments. But neither doesn't mean zero. Neither means that now I have to think about how tech fits into what I really want to do, and how events fits into the same dream. So my current thing, my vision now is farming and tourism, right? That's where I want to eventually settle. But I can't see being able to do tourism without events, without events experience, and being able to genuinely put those lessons learned, the 13 years I've spent in events, into a good experience, a good hospitality experience, and also the lessons I'm learning from running the restaurant. Neither can I see farming being scalable in this day and age where getting a square mile is not going to be for our time, without bringing in the tech elements of stuff, whether it is the traceability side of things, whether it's analytics, whether it is just modern tech in, like, assuming I was keeping cows or something, like into a feedlot kind of structure, thinking about the whole value chain of farming and value addition. So, for example, we run a meat business as well. My wife and I run a meat business. We also run some farms. Some of you guys, Helen is there. She's visited my pig farm, when seen the goats and the cows as well. We have a butchery business, and it's a butcher that feeds the restaurant. So the farm, the butchery, the restaurant. But we also do value addition. So we make our own sausage, for example. So what we have seen is that scalability is only based on being able to do value addition. Value addition depends on tech. Tech does not mean, tech is wide. But when I was working, when I was building the data center, the Rockstreet data center for the last 6 years, one thing that I got in love with was the whole that whole fourth industrial revolution stack. It's something I'd kind of known almost bits and pieces about, but I'd never used to think of it in its whole entirety. So being able to now learn and understand that cloud computing, for example, is not virtual servers, as most people think about it, but you're thinking about it from the perspective of analytics. Why does it matter to me, the feeding ratio of the pigs, in terms of the business plan and how it's going to eventually play out, right? How can I run this farm with 2 people instead of 5 people, right? What can your AI kind of conversation bring into this whole, kind of whatever? What kind of application do I need to create more efficiencies? So I feel like everything I've done in my life has basically been climaxing into farming and tourism.
Which brings me to, how many things do you actually do?
Yeah, I don't know. we figure it out as we go along.
And it's surprising that you still have time to support pirates. Yet you could have supported COBS, which needs little time,
I like to do things that feed into each other, right? When you really take time. Oh, and also I'm not very good at really explaining the actual detail. I like people figuring out what I'm saying. And hopefully by the time we leave today, I've figured out something along the way. But I like things that feed into each other. Like every one thing, I like to see that it feeds into the next thing. Some of them are obvious and I can talk about them, but some of them to me are like the best kept secrets, right? So I'll give an example of the internet business is what got us into the opportunity of being part of the data center business. The data center business, when I was there working for the last 6 years, I realized one opportunity is that the data center cannot reach its full potential without a local private cloud platform that can support this ecosystem, for example. Everyone here, the most you think of is AWS, the most you think about is Azure Stack. But the moment this data protection thing hits its full potential, you start sweating. Secondly, latency and quality of links and cost of the links and stuff like that. Local cloud is a real proposition. And local cloud is what's going to populate these data centers. And without cloud, you can't get the most of the data centers. And ultimately, you as a last mile consumer, you'll always end up with a much higher cost service because the internet is not here. So the internet business got me into the data center business. The data center business got me into the cloud business now, which is all part of the same, fourth industrial revolution stack. But ultimately, I want a farmer in Kapchora to be able to analyze weather patterns or receive a report of weather patterns that are going to affect his sorghum farm because there's analytics sitting on a local cloud. This is not existing right now. We literally can't even predict the weather. In this day and age, we're still shocked that it's raining. You know what I mean? The guy, when they read out the weather forecast, they tell you there will be some sunshine and scattered rainfalls in the areas around Lake Victoria. That's the whole country. So it's up to you. Figure it out where you fit it, So I feel like we are now in a stage in life where we can't be a third world country or start thinking like a third world country. We are playing at a global scale. At this very moment, there is a group of people in Kenya who are doing the same thing. There's a group of people in New York who are sitting down and doing the same thing. It's Friday evening. How many people waste their Friday evening listening to the Muchiga's story than painting just behind here, La Villa where we just passed. You can see the thinking is different. These riots that are being led by such young people, times have changed. Now, you can choose to ignore it, and some will, but you have to choose to embrace it. And it's thinking globally that I feel is going to get us there. So, in my view, why I keep open-minded, why I try and stay relevant socially, why I try and keep the same level of relationship, irrespective of male, female, young, old, whatever, is because I feel like we are now at a stage where we have to think together and at the same, at the same pace, you know what I mean? And being honest about the fact that nobody knows everything, right? I learn from you, learn from me. We make some mistakes together here and there, but heaven is the goal. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. So, in this room, there are very many developers, tech enthusiasts, and also startup founders. And now we want to shift the conversation now to tech and startups. You've been at the data center for some time. You guys have been up to a lot of stuff, yeah? Maybe you could first take us through what you guys are up to there. Because usually, like you said, many people cannot comprehend what you guys actually do. Maybe you could just take us through what has been going on and what you guys are up to over there.
Okay, yeah. So I can just talk about the data center stuff so that you understand what data centers are and what they do. Then we shall relate it to how they can probably improve your life. Yeah? And I also use the opportunity to talk about cloud as well. Yeah. The non-techies, this might be a good chance to get some coffee. So the Roxio data center, which is we call it the only right now privately owned Tier 3 certified data center. The data center we built, first of all, is a world-class data center. It's truly amazing. Even when I go there now, I still feel fascinated that we did this. It was the first of the Roxio data centers. A data center, in effect, is a home for technology equipment. The biggest service that is offered in data centers is called colocation, which is bring your server, put it here. We power it up, we connect to other servers and other systems and to the rest of the world. But it's an environment that's purpose designed to host equipment. So the cooling is world class, the power is stable, and every connectivity option there is in the country is available there, including the local Uganda Internet Exchange Point. So for most companies, they use it for disaster recovery because you want an offsite location where you're going to put your equipment. But some of them also realize that this is the primary location that you can put your stuff. So you don't need to have a server room in your office and then deal with the power costs, support costs, and all kind of things. Can I have someone else take care of this kind of thing? But that's the obvious stuff. The less obvious stuff is that a data center is the home of the internet in a given location. So all global carriers, submarine cable providers, cloud service providers, enterprises, internet exchanges, connectivity providers, all of them have presence within there. And when they have presence within there, that means that they can connect to each other through a process we call cross-connect, and then they can share services with each other, right? Now, when you think about startups and fintechs, you guys have a very interesting journey. It's slightly different from fully fledged enterprises. So you probably say, but how does that really affect me? I don't even have a server. So that's how the cloud computing conversation comes in. When you're an application developer, you're thinking about your next big idea and how it's going to work. But there's no idea that's not going to have a home to sit somewhere. You need some infrastructure that you're going to put whatever you've developed, whether it's if it's software or database or whatever it is. Now, if you have some money, you'll buy some hardware, but that's not scalable because how many servers are you going to buy? Especially in startup phase. But if you can, we can collocate those. If you can't, that's when the cloud enters the picture, because then I can give you virtual servers and virtual firewalls protect your stuff, and then you can continuously develop on those shells, right, that are sitting there. Now, if I have a private cloud sitting in a data center, your applications only make sense if they are going to work with other companies, right, or going to impact communities, not just stand around and be cool, and that is the biggest challenge I can say developers face, is getting stuck in innovation, because development is one of the things that you actually have to be bright. You understand? It's not like one of the things where you can just say, oh, today I just want to be a software developer, I'll just do it, and then tomorrow I'll be a farmer. No. It's one of those where you actually need a brain, and you have to put the brain to work. But the biggest challenge that developers have is that they get stuck in innovation. They get stuck within their brain. They don't think about why am I doing this thing? Instead of starting from the need part, like what does the world want? They start from the building side. So consequently, over 95% of applications crash on launch because they were done by me for what I think the world needs. And yet the applications that actually seem to make the most money are the simplest things. Transfer money from here to here. It's been there forever and ever, right? Who knew that the biggest innovation that the Savannah Valley, this East African region, would ever have since time memorial was transferring money? You get it? Something as simple as that. Less is more, right? So what we try and do at the data center is to make sure that we have a home that is going to take care of the infrastructure needs, right? And then the ecosystem needs, because whatever you're developing needs to connect to someone else, right? And what I'm doing with the cloud is to make sure that I bridge the gap between when you can't afford to have your own hardware and to when you can go onto the market. So that gap is basically server infrastructure, firewall infrastructure, which is basically like cybersecurity, managed services, to be able to do the stuff you don't want to do and just want to concentrate on your part of doing things, and some of those kind of little gaps, addressing those kind of gaps. So there's an initiative we're working on now, and I really hope it works out, because that's going to change maybe a lot of people's lives here in this room. We feel that being able to provide a cloud infrastructure in itself is not enough, because there's still a cost element. And the biggest hassle for a startup is even just mediarilo, like you're trying to figure out how to make your housemates laugh at your jokes so that you can pay your rent.
As you cook.
As you cook. You should be cooking ideas rather than cooking food. So we're trying to address that from a different angle. So we have an initiative we're pushing, and we hope that we'll get the partnership through. We've approached Ministry of Science and Technology, and also some of these global organizations say, let's do a half and half. We'll bring in some money. You bring in some money. We build a very scalable local cloud infrastructure platform with this range of services that we can give at least 12 months free to the startup. So you develop without pressure of like, end of month they're going to chop me off and I can't access the thing, Actually, when they cut you off from your virtual machine, it's even worse than being bounced out of a house for rent because you're really naked at that stage. So we want to try and address that situation so that we can give people runway and then they can build on that and be able to move forward. So that's kind of like just on a nutshell some of the stuff that we're doing, but I'm happy to go into like deeper tech convos.
In terms of advice as well, you could also give us your parting shots to the developers here, the startup founders, and anyone who came here to just listen to you.
Okay. All right, I'll stand up for this. First of all, I'm happy to be here today. I think it's one of my best spent Fridays so far. So my parting words for you, answer with those ones who are not married. I can see the guilty faces. It's scared. I think maybe marriage might be overrated, but I think you need stability in your lives at all times because it gives you some kind of grounding and partnership. Constantly, you first of all you have someone stress all the time. Whenever you come, you'll tell them even if they don't want. My day was bad. This happened. My day was good. Whatever it is. Companionship is great. Family, your brothers, sisters, parents. These guys, you're stuck with them. And when we're growing up and our sense of independence tends to drive our thinking, we tend to forget that these people are actually part of you. They're your DNA. It's very important that every once in a while, check on them, visit them, go to the village, as you people call it. We call it home. And just keep those two. So you need your family, and your friends' family. That's half the battle. Now, the last one is the people you work with or do business with. You actually spend more time with those people than your other two families because it's 9 to 5 daily. And some of us, we work day and night. Telecom by day, bala by night, entertainment by weekend, farming, what. So I'm spending so much time with these kind of people, right? You need to be acceptable to them and you need to accept them. So that you have basically harmony throughout. They're the ones who piss you off and you go and stress your wife and husband. So you need to avoid getting stressed before you go to the other side. So I'm preaching community, I'm preaching peace and calm, I'm preaching being able to kind of be together with people around you because people who will build you, right? Outside of that, my advice for you as startups and developers is study the trends. There's always something big happening all the time. Don't be caught offside. Developers, as I mentioned, tend to get stuck in innovation, stuck in development, behind the PC. And you miss the bus. And guys use your work and make bucks and it pisses you off. Don't miss the bus. Understand the trends. Right now, I believe the cybersecurity train is leaving that station. Whichever part of it you do, even if you're developing for security, do it and think about it because everyone is getting cautious about cybersecurity, right? I think cloud computing has to be adopted because it's good for cost control, it's good for scalability and stuff like that. So as you're developing and planning your resources, think that direction, right? Don't give up on trying to create jobs and trying to create stuff. My experience has shown that sooner or later, the door will open somehow. So just keep pushing and and putting in all the work. When things jam, talk to people in the industry, talk to people you work with. If you run into a character like myself, ask me when you failed here, how did you navigate this one? I tell you, I navigated and I failed even more. But at least you get to relate to the fact that it's not all guns and roses. Yeah. So you must just continue pushing, but push strategically. Think through what's working and what's not working. Yeah? And lastly, you're not alone. Everyone is going through some kind of struggle somewhere. There's no one in the world who's happy and they're walking around me. I'm very happy in my life. No. There's some challenge they're facing. So whenever you're facing any challenge and you feel like giving up, just know that the other guy is also struggling. And we rise by lifting others, as my jumper says. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And